Why do you host travelers?
Because we're so busy in the summer, we can't maintain all of our garden and everything without help. Picking raspberries, weeding, watering, building things. Built a greenhouse this year, raised beds. Seems like every year we have a ton of stuff going on and a ton of food to serve, and we certainly need help.
And what I've noticed is that we have so much production coming on, we don't even have time to harvest because we have to be, at work getting food out. And sometimes it's just impossible to even spend that, critical 20 minutes to 45 minutes harvest time sometimes is all we have to get it out the door and turn it over into product to go out.
Mm-hmm.
We heard about the Woofer program last year, and it literally made all the difference in the world for what we've been able to do.
Is there a most memorable experience you've had that kind of stands out?
I forgot where I lived. And so having Alexis here, hiking 9 peaks in 30 days, and having Tallman and Sarah here, just only for 2 weeks, and yet we hiked into Clayton Lake, and they all bought a fishing license for a day, a 1-day permit, and I took them into Clayton Lake, and everybody with a license caught their limit. We brought them back and had a super fresh fish fry, and they were amazed and elated that they could go to my favorite lake and they could catch fish by themselves with no help, just knock it out. And hiking with Alexis a few times reminded me why we live here. And then this year, hiking the Highline Trail. And so I am very motivated to recreate more than I even have before.
And what I've noticed is that everyone brings something to the table. And it's like Brittany talking up, wanting to do something different with corn, and so we explored this Mexican street corn sauce. Or with Stacy, it was the Burberry seasoning from Ethiopia that has now we've blended in, or making our own blends. So every woofer brings something to the table that ends up staying with us throughout, our new line of products. And I think that's very cool.
Yeah. Where are you from, and why did you come here?
I'm from Greenville, South Carolina. I go to school in Chicago. And I came to Montana because I was at a very difficult time in my life. Just really beginning to wrestle with some demons that I had kept hidden for a long time. And I think before I left the city, I used the analogy that there had been rubber bands around all of my organs, and all of a sudden they popped off. And I went a little crazy, I think, by some people's standards of knowing who I am. Began my a startling relationship with drugs, and began to realize that the only time I was happy was when I was under the influence or in spaces where no one knew me. And so I came to Montana to kind of reintroduce myself to myself and learn how to love myself in my ugliest of forms, which I've never been very good at.
Do you think that you've made progress on that front?
I think so. I think that I'm learning how important it is for me to name my insecurities and name the dark parts of myself that I think traditionally I would hide or cover. And I think Montana's really offered that space to both process the past and recognize that wherever I go, I carry those things with me. It's not like Montana brought healing. It's that wherever I am, I gotta deal with this stuff. And I definitely think that I've been reintroduced to what holistic joy is here, and I haven't felt that in a long time. I think part of it's the environment. Mountains and nature itself, I think, are very healing forms just to engage with. But I also think very much so it is the people. I was standing at the farmer's market with Meg the other day, and there's a farm that I had looked at on the Woofing website. And I just looked at the table and I was like, I would have been standing with that man right now had I emailed him rather than emailed Meg. And began to recognize how important it was for me to build the relationships that I had in front of me, and even being able to name the specific elements that each relationship brought me that I had been lacking. As Meg would say, the universe is looking out for me, here to support me, and has presented me with the materials needed to heal and move forward.
How does, or how has, hosting travelers made your life different? How does it affect you?
I will start by saying that before we had woofers, I was working close to 100 hours per week, literally, and averaging 2 to 3 hours of sleep in the summertime, and 0 days off for 120 days counting sometimes. Since we've had woofers this year, I was able to actually take 2 full days off in a row and breathe. It's allowed me to have time to do paperwork, which is the last thing that gets attention, but it needs attention. It's part of the whole business. So that's been huge. It's changed our lives because we're learning to live communal again. I grew up in a huge family, but it takes away your personal space to some degree but I'm here to notice that my personal space is gone. Before, I was working all the time, so it didn't make any difference if I had personal space. So that has it's been good.
So the amount of work and play and effort that the woofers bring for simply room and board is it kind of renews my faith in humanity. There's people out there willing to do things that make a difference, and we're trying to make a difference, but we have a huge tendency to bite off more than we can chew, and so thank God there's people out there that want to help.
Well, and what I was going to say as well is that I'm surprised by how many people just don't know where to start as far as gardening or self-sustainability goes. There's an interest, but as far as just even the beginning knowledge of how to start it out has just surprises me. I don't know if a couple of generations have skipped all that information. I thought the things we know, I thought 50% of it everyone knew, and I'm learning that that's not quite true.
Right. What have you learned about yourself during your time here?
I think I've learned how important it is for me to remind myself of my own strength. It is my tendency to tear myself down or seek strength in others, and I think it's been very important for me to intentionally take time to talk strength into myself, which is something that our culture does not teach us to do, not in a holistic way. I also think I have learned that I am a very fragile person who loves to take risks, and I've begun to see that in full form here. That I like to live life boldly, but with that comes a great deal of joy and excitement and newness, and a lot more pain than I think I recognized was an individual choice. That with the ups and the great joys also comes the dark suffering and pain. And also learning that is not shameful. That it is okay to cry, okay to be sad, and to hurt, and that it's a part of joy. It is inseparable from life.
So maybe we can talk a little more about sustainability and what measures you've taken towards it.
I saw an article recently that said the most important thing that we could do to reverse global warming would be to plant large food-bearing plants. And that alone could make a gigantic difference. Everybody just planted plants that would grow large, produce a lot of food. And we have elderberries, tomatoes, potatoes, all kinds of things here. I often wonder if the zucchini fit that fold, because ours are about 4 or 5 feet tall now and producing like crazy.
And I think a little bit on a different note, what I really like to do is to let things self-seed in the garden, and so that we're not having to purchase new seed, and the self-seed and save seeds. So for instance, garlic, if you were to buy seed garlic, it takes 4 years for the garlic to take on the personality of the soil and the area where you're at. So by saving our own garlic, in essence, we're producing our own strains of those different varieties over time. And the same things with allowing things to self-seed, the parsley, the cilantro, the mustards, lettuces, spinaches, carrots even. If we let them self-seed, that means they're happy here. They like this environment. They're acclimated to it. And we're, in essence, creating our own strains of things that like this area, that are developed for this area. The other thing towards sustainability, I think, is we do a lot of foraging. Because I don't believe that everything needs to be purchased seed in order to be worthwhile. We have so many native plants that have a very high nutritional profile if you compare it to typical garden varieties. So the golden purslane, the lamb's quarters, spruce tips, oxeye daisies, huckleberries.
Morels? Did you say morels?
Morels. So
100
lots of
100
morels.
pounds of morels this year. That
Yeah, elderberries, elderflowers, glacial lilies, harebells. We do a lot with the native greens and flowers and fungi. And I can't say enough good things about it. I believe it's very important to our area, and the things that grow well here because they're acclimated to this area. The nutritional content that they bring, the mineral content from the deep taproots. The other things on sustainability, we make our own fertilizer with the comfrey plant, which is renewable. And it is 100% plant-based, and once we have it done, it has the same carbon to nitrogen ratio as manure, but yet we're not hauling. We do haul manure in, llama manure, but for the most part, we're making our own soil amendments. And there have been times when we've used the rock powders and the blood meal, those kind of things. We do, but we find that we can rejuvenate the soil using plant material to a large degree, and watching the plants just flourish as a result. So you can see the results the next day, and you're doing something absolutely right.
What's the biggest challenge you've seen in farming?
The natural dirt here, I can't believe the trees even grow here, let alone all the underbrush. Our soil is, what little bit there is naturally occurring here is very poor. We live near the river, but at some point in time, who knows, maybe hundreds or thousands of years ago, this was the river. And we live in a giant riverbed of rocks.
I knew when I first put the shovel or a spading fork into the dirt here, and it was a very pale brown color, and there were no earthworms. I knew there's a lot of work ahead of us, and we have
Got to
built.
cultivate that soul.
Yeah, we've built and built and built. And I was up for the challenge, but I didn't realize how much it's taken. A lot of green cover cropping, and we till in a lot of weeds. I think weeds are a great green cover crop. Every year is different. Some of the environmental things that change things. The year we had the best tomatoes is when we were surrounded by forest fires. The night temperature is warmer as a result, because here in Montana we have very cool nights. So the nights dip down into the 40s year round. A lot of the plants and vegetables that we like don't grow well unless, or they mature late. There's been many, many years when we get our first ripe tomato the second week in September, and we're harvesting almost all of our tomatoes. I mean, we harvest we harvest lots of tomatoes, but we're harvesting them all green and then ripening them under full spectrum lights. So it's very nice to be able to, we're starting to alter the way that we're doing things. The water reservoir that we created was a huge step last year. How many gallons?
It's about a 500-gallon tank, and it pre-warms the water a little bit before we put it in the plants. So our we're on city water, but it's really good stuff. It comes out of the ground. I swear it's never above 40.
The wellheads go down. It's almost 800 foot down deep wells that are in the Bob Marshall Wilderness, the Forest Service. So it's very great water, but it doesn't have to be treated at all. They test it, but it does not have to be treated. And as a result, when we water and when we irrigate, we're putting 40-degree water on plants that are already struggling with those 40-degree night temperatures. So by bringing the water into an above ground tank and solar heating it to ambient temperature and watering with that, we're already boosting the maturity of the plants so that they can produce.
How do you envision the future of your farm? Do you have a certain goal that you are trying to attain?
We would really like to produce a lot more of the food with our own hands. We're contemplating a heat source for the greenhouse to keep it viable all winter. And we don't know how that's going to go yet. This will be our first winter, we'll see. But in the really long term, we want to put in an underground greenhouse. Put something down 10, 12 feet in the ground, insulate it well, come up above the ground with a nice south-facing wall, and put in some artificial lights and water, and really make that go all year.
Long term, as a business, we want to have a manufacturing facility. We want to be taking all those items and quickly processing them into sauces and into salsas, things of that nature that can be amendments to food. And teaching cooking classes to kids is something I really would like to do. From the ground level for harvesting all the way to simple prep things that they can do. Because if it's been lost in the last couple of generations, that's where I believe that it can be learned again, is through children. Because children are like sponges and they teach their parents.